All right, Jen, over to you.
Well, thank you for the really kind introduction. You did kind of make me blush, but thank you. Um, so my name is Jen Buchholz. Just call me Jen. In class, we sort of have to be a little more professional, so I tell students just call me Professor B because no one can pronounce my last name, and that's fine. But I've been teaching at AMU for about 14 years, almost exactly now, in criminal justice and forensic science, and that's the disciplines that both of my master's degrees are in. I have taken a little more limited role recently because I've done some course development, and I really just want to focus on this cold case investigations class that I'm going to tell you guys about tonight. So I'm really just teaching that class right now. I'm also trying to urge the higher ups to let me develop an advanced cold case class. So that would take a lot of time too if they approve it. So that may be in the works. But I'm also an Army veteran. I was a counterintelligence agent in the military, deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan, did a lot of counterintelligence operations around the world, both in the Army and for many years afterwards. I've worked at the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner in New York City when I was in college. That's probably what really sparked my passion for homicide investigation. And then in recent years, my civilian investigative partner, George, and I started a getting to be more formal volunteer cold case team through AMU. So I'll give you some more information on that later if you're interested. And the course I'm going to talk about tonight that I developed is intended to be a prerequisite to be part of that team. And also, in my real life, I'm the cold case investigator for the El Paso County Sheriff's Office in Colorado Springs, Colorado. We often get confused with El Paso, Texas, but I'm in Colorado. I don't know why they named our county that, but anyways. So I'm their main cold case investigator. I'm actually not a badged deputy. I'm a civilian criminal investigator, but I have nearly all of the same powers, I guess you could say, as a detective or a badged deputy, other than I don't have arrest powers. But I work right alongside the detectives in the major crime unit every single day. I can do, interviews, I assist with interrogations, research, like, I mean, everything that goes into a homicide investigation or missing persons case. I'm right there with them helping out. So, absolutely love the job. I wish I would have found it 20 years ago, but here we are. And so, like Ree said, I found a way to kind of also use that passion in some of my free time to help other victims' families. Nothing to do with my agency, but to help other victims' families around the country with their unsolved homicide cases. And George and I have developed we have a team, and Kim Schaefer's on here. I'll just do a shout out. Kim has been instrumental in helping us with several of our cases and doing research and just collaborating, and it's been wonderful. Um, so as we go along, I just have a few short PowerPoint slides. I'm not doing death by PowerPoint like in the military. I just have a few short slides. Feel free, like Ree said, either raise your hand if you have a question or you can type it in the chat and then I'll answer all the questions at the end. Either way, I'm fine with. Like she said, I'm not here to lecture. I'm just here to try to spark some discussion, give you an idea about what this course is about, and then get some feedback and ideas and, just answer whatever questions you have. So what I'm going to do is share my screen so that you can see my few short slides. So let me get there. And then here. And I'm hoping as I go along, I can still access the chat. Let me see if I can. I think I can. So is everybody still seeing the front slide of my PowerPoint that has the course description? Okay. Because in a couple slides, I have some links to share, and I'm going to post those in the chat. So that's why I want to make sure that I had access. Um, So this is the official course description that's on the AMU website. I'm not going to read it to you because all of you can read, but you can read it while I give you a little more info. I geared this course to assist both active law enforcement and civilian investigators. So whether you actually work in law enforcement or not, if you have an interest in homicide and missing persons cases, I think that this course will be beneficial to you. I have worked both sides of that coin. So I work in law enforcement currently, But through our volunteer cold case team, we work the other side of the coin where we're not with the law enforcement agency and we don't always have a case file. And so it's given me some great insight into what it takes, no matter which side of that coin you're working from. Um, I geared the course to focus mostly on unsolved homicides because that's my background and my experience. However, at work now, we have dug really deep into a couple missing persons cases in the last couple years. And so in the future, I may add some content to focus students on missing persons cases as well, or give them some insight into that because although the investigative cycle is similar, there's obviously a lot of things between homicide and a missing persons case that are very different when it comes to the investigation. But this course is mostly focused on homicides for now. Um, and like I said earlier, it's meant to be an introduction course with the intent of me developing an advanced course someday, so fingers crossed. For a couple statistics, why is this important? Well, we have about 300,000, if not more, unsolved homicides in our country, and that number grows by about 6,000 a year. So clearance rates are actually lower than they were decades ago, which is a topic for a whole nother conversation. But we also have about 500,000 missing persons cases in our country, and I'm sure a good percentage of those are actually homicides. So there is really a need for not only law enforcement, but civilian investigators to tackle some of these cases. Like law enforcement will never be able to have enough time, resources, personnel, or anything to tackle that many hundreds of thousands of cases. I will talk a little bit more about the volunteer cold case team at AMU at the end. We're trying to make it more formal, get it its own website through AMU. Everything's a challenge, and it costs money. And like I said, this course, though, is intended to be a prereq for possible selection to that team. Any questions so far?
Yes, I am just
Okay.
wondering how is that going to work? Because for those cases, most likely they're having some privacy issue, some PII, personal identifiable personal information, those kind of things. So I'm thinking, I mean, if you are recruiting volunteers, is there going to be some kind of a clearance, or what would be the measure doing that?
We don't have a strict qualification list yet. You would never need a clearance. We're not doing like top secret government type stuff. I don't have to have a clearance to work at the sheriff's office. Nobody there has to have a clearance. We are hoping to develop the team on a more professional level where we'll get some agencies to work officially with us side by side. There's one or two programs at colleges in Michigan that have established that type of working relationship, and that's a goal of mine in the future. So, although there would probably be, if we get to that point, probably be like a background check and maybe have to get fingerprints done or something like that. Um, you wouldn't have to go through an actual, clearance process. We are still developing like the criteria of what we're looking for people that want to be on the team. And I will say there's no specific criteria in terms of your professional background, your educational background. We have learned we want people from all different backgrounds and walks of life to help us because I can't think of everything. George can't think of everything. And people who come from different backgrounds, they'll bring ideas to the table that we never would have thought of because we just didn't have that vocation in our background. So we're still working on that list of, I guess you could call it criteria, although I don't expect we'll ever have an actual strict list like, you must have a degree in this or experience in that. It's not going to be that way. So that's probably not the best answer to your question, but there would be also a non-disclosure agreement that everybody would have to sign because you're correct. There will be times when, you're learning about people's personal identifying information, the PII, like you mentioned. And obviously that's information that can't be leaked or shared. We would never put a suspect's information out online or something like that. So there would be a non-disclosure agreement, but that's pretty standard. Was there
Hey, Jen.
somebody? Yeah.
There's a question in the chat, and I just didn't want it to
Okay.
get buried. It says, how relevant is the info in this course to digital forensics?
It depends. Okay, the course itself, sorry. The course itself, we don't go too much into digital forensics because that is a very specific unit within a law enforcement agency. Um, that would be something I'd want to cover more in the advanced course, along with things like specific statement analysis and interrogation techniques. But starting out basics, especially with cold cases, if we're talking cases that are 20, 30, 40 years old, there is no digital footprint, right? Like they didn't have cell phones, there was no video back then. So it's not something that we deal with very often in cold cases. So I kind of kept that out of the course because I just didn't think it was going to come into play very often. Um, Current day homicide investigations, absolutely. We use digital forensics all the time. But when we're talking about a decades old case, there is none. So that's not covered too much in the course. Does that help? Okay. I have to switch back and forth between my PowerPoint. My apologies. I don't know how many people in the audience are actually current students at AMU, but you don't have to be a current student. You don't have to declare a degree program to take the class. You can just go to our website, which I'll put the link in the chat. You can fill out the application to become a student. There's no fee to apply. And then there's a drop-down menu in that application where it'll ask you like, what degree program are you seeking? And you can just put non-degree seeking. And that's it. And you can apply and you can literally take one course. Because I've had a lot of people ask me like, well, I'm not going to go back to college at 50 years old, and take a whole degree program. You don't have to do that. It's literally a one course option if you want to. So to get into a little bit of the meat of the course, it is all project based. I'm not a fan of tests. I don't think memorizing information and regurgitating it is very helpful. I don't think that really stays in your brain. So I think putting your skills and information to use through projects is going to solidify those newly learned skills and information in your brain better. So just roughly an overview of how the course works is in week one, students are going to pick an unsolved homicide case. It can be, from their local area or their state, wherever. And then they're going to stick with that case throughout the course and use it to learn different tactics and techniques. So I've listed some of the projects here that are part of the course. So there's an investigative plan that students will put together for that case that they picked. And, we walk through all the different parts of an investigative plan and discuss how each plan is different. Like for each case, it's not going to be the same. And how do you tailor your plan to your case and then execute it properly? Another one will be to develop a social media account for the case, which can later be deleted. It doesn't have to be a permanent thing, but just to go through the steps of properly establishing a social media account in order to raise awareness for your case. I want to bring on George, my partner. He's a long-term investigative journalist and true crime author, and we're going to do a live Zoom with students where, he's going to talk somewhat about the advantage of using the media and how to best use the media for your case. And then obviously you can interact with him and ask all the questions you want to ask. And then the very last project is a podcast recording. And it's not meant to be like this perfect podcast episode. It's going to be short. It's just there's a certain time frame that I want students to stay within. But what you'll do is do a mock interview with somebody. And again, you're not actually going to investigate the case. This is all kind of hypothetical, but you're going to use the actual case facts and information that's out there to help you. So for your podcast recording, you're going to have to figure out there's no suspect interviews, but like what family member of the victim do you want to interview? Or do you want to interview the detective or an eyewitness or a friend of the victim? And again, this is hypothetical and you have to find someone to do the script with you, but it just gives you an idea of some interview techniques, how podcasting works, like things to think about when you're recording. I'm not going to be worried about audio quality or anything like that. You don't have to buy any kind of equipment, but it's more just like what questions would you want to ask the person? What would you expect to get from them through that interview and how you communicate that with your audience? And then, of course, we have weekly discussion forums, and most of those center around the case that each student picks, which will be my next slide. Is there any questions at the moment before I go to the next one? I have to switch back here. Can you pick a case you're already involved with? Yeah, I don't care. I mean, I think that'd be great. If anyone in the class is law enforcement and you're allowed to utilize one of your cases, that would be some amazing content to share with the class. I understand a lot of agencies might not approve that. And we're not looking to like get a case file or suspect information or anything like that. But if you have a case you've been working on or you're interested in, absolutely. I have no issue with that. Uh, okay, so course details. Okay. Sorry, I'm switching back and forth again here.
Do you want me to just put the slides for you, Jen, so you don't have to go back and forth?
I think there's only 2 more.
Okay.
So, so for the discussion forums, which are almost weekly, there's one week that there's not one, but like week 1, everybody picks what case they want to work on. They're going to give a, or not work on, but focus on, they're going to give a background on the case and what information they can find open source. Again, we're not trying to contact law enforcement agencies and get their case file or anything like that. But what is online that you can find about it? Because you'd be surprised the valuable information you could find from like, especially newspaper archives. Um, because back in the day, agencies released a lot more information than they do now. So, there's some research that students will have to do on the case that they want to focus on, and then they'll share that with the class. And then identifying and locating family members. Again, we're not actually going to be calling family members, but when you have a cold case, you want to figure out if the victim has any family members that are still alive. So using open source, again, social media is very valuable. Obituaries, trying to identify the victim's family members and who might still be alive and where they are and how would you get a hold of them if you were going to. And we go into questioning techniques when we're interviewing people, what kind, and then what kind of outside experts can you think of that could assist your case? For example, the case our volunteer team's working on right now, the victim was stabbed 24 times and her house was set on fire. So although I have a solid background in homicide investigation, I am not an arson expert by any means. So we went and found an arson expert who has done this his whole life and has all of that training to help us understand the flow of the fire and where it was started and how and stuff like that. And same with even the stab wounds. We had a knife expert look at the autopsy and the photos, and he was able to narrow down the type of knife that was used against the victim. And so if you can narrow down one of those details, that's going to give you a good clue about the killer. So we talk about stuff like that, solvability, how to evaluate a case for solvability factors, how solvable is it? When you have a victim stabbed 24 times and her house set on fire, that's pretty personal versus a drive-by shooting, right? Which one's probably going to have a higher solvability factor? And so we discussed that and the importance of victimology and learning all about your victim. What can you find out about them? What were their daily habits? Who did they live with? Were they married, single, straight, gay? Did they go to school? Were they in the military? Did they have kids? All this stuff about victimology can be really, really important for understanding the victim, which again is going to help you understand the circumstances that led to their murder. And then we talk about investigative pitfalls, like mistakes not to make. And then the use of media and how that can really help raise awareness with cold cases, solicit tips. There's an advantage with cold cases in terms of time. Like the passage of time is a double-edged sword, I always say, because people that knew your victim or were close to them may have passed away, but at the same time, allegiances change. So I always say I love ex-wives. And so raising awareness has worked in so many cases where an ex-wife of an offender saw something on the media and, that offender had said something to her and it sparked something and she, came forward with the magic tip. So we talk a lot about the use of media and how that can really benefit these older unsolved cases. And then maybe I'll save this slide, until we answer questions about the course, because this slide is if people are interested in helping us in the meantime before the course launches. We have some projects that are ongoing that we're always looking for volunteers to help us with. So I would say maybe we talk about the course for a few minutes, and then I can provide information about those other opportunities if people are interested. So let me.
Do you want me to read you the question in the chat? Oh, you can see it
Okay,
now.
are we back to, yeah, okay, so now we're back. Okay. Okay, Erica, is there a module on OSINT, open source intelligent resources, for those who may not have experience in researching this way? Yes. We talk a lot about open source resources, which are basically what you can find without getting the case file. So I talked about newspaper archives, social media, researching online, um, YouTube videos, whatever. That's all open source information, and we rely on it heavily because, especially with our volunteer team, we always go into a case assuming we're not going to get the case file. Most law enforcement agencies aren't going to share it with us, even though I'm in law enforcement. I know probably might seem surprising, they don't want to share it. So, and that's actually fine because we like to take an absolutely fresh start at the case and start from the beginning on our own and build our own case file. So yes, we use a lot of open source research for what we're doing. Okay, this might be a strange question, but what if you were previously part of a case that was a true crime book and have been interviewed about the case on a podcast? Wouldn't become any kind of conflict of interest or anything? I don't think so. It just means you have some more inside knowledge about the case from the start. um, I don't know if you're asking that from the standpoint of taking the course and if that would be a problem for the case you choose. Maybe if you want to, Michelle, clarify just a little bit. But no, if it's a case, I mean, I would love if students have a passion case, that's really what they want to focus on, bring it to the course. There's no need for you, you know, if that's something you're passionate about, then let's work on it. And my hope is that the class will collaborate together and like, if you have a direct case like that, or you have a friend or family member who has been murdered and you want to bring that case to the class, let's work on it together. Are you interested in partnerships and collaborations with other nonprofits? Absolutely. We are always looking for more skill sets, more people that want to help. I'll be honest, the biggest issue I find with volunteers is their patience level. Cold cases are really tedious. It's not sexy like Dateline. Once in a great while it becomes sexy where you go knock on a suspect's door. And George and I have done that in every single case. But that is really far and few between. A lot of it is just time spent at your laptop doing research. I have spreadsheets, and sometimes I'll write my own reports like I do at work so I can, detail what was said to me, or conducting interviews over the phone, that's part of it that I absolutely love, is just talking to people and learning from people. But yeah, I say that to say that we're always interested in partnerships. We just haven't had a ton of luck because I think some organizations are, and especially unfortunately podcasters, they're like for the quick turnaround, like, oh, I just gotta figure this out real quick, because I'm trying to make money off this, or I'm trying to keep my audience interested or whatever. And that's not how a cold case always goes. But yes, if you want to hit me up offline, we can definitely chat, because we're always looking for people that want to help us. And same with us. Like, we consult with a lot of other family members, even law enforcement. Sometimes other podcasters will reach out, like, can we have a Zoom about a particular case, our case that we're working on? And we'll do that too. So we're happy to help and accept help. And yeah, Excel is your friend. But it's tedious, right? I mean, like, even at work, I have a spreadsheet for every case, and every person I talk to goes in that spreadsheet. And when I talk to them, and they're identifying information and their contact info. So if I need to get in touch with them again, I have it. The gist of what they told me and their relationship to the victim, and like that's part of it, and keeping your case organized, which you got to do. And so, yeah, Excel comes into play a lot for me. It's a solved case. I just want to make sure I actually know of a case here where I live that's a 30-plus-year-old cold case that I would want to use. And I already had tried to take the case, but it wasn't available yet. Oh, the class, sorry, wasn't available yet. My grandmother is a retired crime victims coordinator. Nice. So I've seen this side in many cases, but I also have a sister who was murdered in the early 90s. Oh, I'm so sorry. And that was the case I was talking about. Just unfamiliar waters. I guess I just want to make sure I cover all the avenues to be safe. You're fine. If you are comfortable and you feel like you're okay with working your sister's case through the course, I would love for you to bring that case to us. There's nothing, I, I will say I hate when law enforcement is like, well, we have to protect every single little detail about a case, in order to protect the prosecution of it. And I'm like, it's been 30 years. I mean, so uh, and we talk about hold back information in the class, but figure out your hold back information, those few pieces that you don't want the public to know that only the killer knows, and let the public know the rest because it'll probably jog someone's memory. So
Right.
if you are comfortable and feel like you're mentally okay with focusing on your sister's case and getting input from other students and me, I think that would be wonderful. There's nothing law enforcement can do to stop you. You wouldn't be sharing their case file with us if you happen to have it or anything like that. This class is focused on open source information. So if you would be comfortable doing that, I would absolutely welcome it.
So
Uh,
you have mentioned that you have a badge or something like that, but I mean, the suspects, they are not obliged to talk to us, basically. Is that correct? I mean, pretty much like even the victims, uh, anyone who is involved in the case, basically, they are not obliged to talk to us when you're talking about interviews and stuff.
they're not, I think you said obliged, or
Yeah.
they're not required. No. Um, Law enforcement rarely wants to talk to outsiders about a case. We already know that. Victims' families are kind of, I don't want to call it a toss up. The majority want to talk about their person's case because they want that awareness. They don't want their person forgotten, right? That's why we're here. But they're not obligated to talk to us. No. If that's what you're asking. And there's no, in this class, like it's all kind of hypothetical. We're not actually going to be calling victims' family members or anything like that. So like the podcast recording, like I said, it's going to be somewhat scripted where you have to find, your spouse or your kid or somebody to play the other person, but you'll just introduce yourself and pretend like you are talking to whoever it may be, the victim's family member or witness or something like that. It's just to give you that experience of interviewing a little bit and figuring out your questioning technique. And like I said, audio quality I don't care about. You can just use your phone to record it. But there's also things to think about, like is my dog barking in the background and is there a bunch of kids screaming or whatever? Those are things that you'll have to think about. But um, yeah, nobody's obligated to talk to you.
I think you have mentioned probably the program itself that you and your teammates interviewing the suspects. How did you get them talk to you in this case?
So where I'm at right now on the Zoom, right? I'm just an adjunct faculty member for AMU. And so George and I love male female teams when we do this. We will figure out where our suspect lives or works. I like actually finding suspects at work because it's harder for them to just slam the door on you or whatever. But we will go together and we will knock on the door, so to speak, and we will just say, we work at American Military University and we also run this volunteer cold case team, and this victim's case was submitted to us for consideration. And so we're just finding people who are in that victim circle to talk to, and we couldn't find a good phone number for you, which is true half the time. So we were in the area and we stopped by. And I've never had the door shut in my face. We've always been welcomed in. Now, there's been times where certain suspects ushered us out pretty quickly, not because we were being confrontational, but just because you can tell they're super uncomfortable. They don't want to talk about it. And, they'll say things like, all right, well, 5 minutes into the conversation. But anyways, that is the approach George and I usually use with suspects. Now, at work with the sheriff's office, obviously I can't do that. I have to tell them exactly who I am. I have to give them my business card. Um, if they're coming into our interview room and they're a suspect, I have to read them their rights. So it's a whole different story. But that's one of the advantages of being on the civilian side with the volunteer team. I don't have to read anybody their rights. I don't have to say anything about working in law enforcement. I'm just a little adjunct professor and I'm just doing a little research on this case to see if our team wants to work on it. So that's the approach we usually use. And so far it's been successful. Anything else on that? Okay, and then Michelle gave us a little more information. Her case is solved. So when you say solved, has there been a conviction? I'm reading the rest of your. Um,
Yeah, a whole town a good old boy mentality.
yeah,
Oof.
that happens. Man, that happens. Okay, so there is a conviction. Um, I mean, the intent of the class is to pick an unsolved case, and who knows where the classwork might actually lead on it because those victims need assistance clearly if their case is unsolved. I do think in some of the discussion forums, your sister's case would probably have some very good teaching points and opportunities for you to discuss it that would help other students, and especially from you being a secondary victim. I think students would definitely benefit from hearing from that, but I get that it's a very sensitive position to be in, and you might not want to talk about your experiences. Okay, the case is 30 years old is a missing persons case. Um, Again, like we're not really focusing on missing persons cases at this time, but we could talk offline if you want about the details of that case and see what we can do.
So that was a question I was gonna put up just to have, in case anyone else wonders when they listen. The cold case team that you and George run, I don't know what the correct word is. Do you only do unsolved murder cases, or do you not immediately limit it to that and you'll look at all kinds of different ones and then go from there?
For us to dive 100% into a case for now, our criteria is it's got to be a homicide. Um, we don't take cases that have been ruled a suicide or accident, but the submitting person thinks it's a homicide because we already have such a big hurdle with probably not having the case file that to add that additional humongous hurdle of trying to get a medical examiner or coroner to change the manner of death, which is super difficult. I'm dealing with it at work. I just don't think our team has those resources. I will say we do have one team member, Patricia, who focuses on missing persons cases, but right now she's working on the case of her college, a very good college friend who went missing 4 years ago. So she is neck deep in that investigation for now. We help her as much as we can, but again, missing persons isn't our expertise, but there's some investigative actions that are similar between homicide and missing persons. So we help her and support her as best we can. And she is interested in working more missing persons cases, excuse me, in the future. But right now she's got that one, and she's also a lawyer. So she has a full-time career and a husband and kids. So it's like one thing at a time. I would love to expand the team someday to where we have a whole section of people that have experience or knowledge that's going to be uh, able to assist a missing persons case and they can focus on those. But just being honest right now, I don't feel like we have enough resources to work missing persons cases regularly. But like I said, a dream, I guess, or something. Like if we can expand someday, I would love to tackle some of those too.
So,
um, go ahead. Yeah.
I just wanted to say, so we don't forget, um, I wanted to mention the legacy project,
Yes.
uh, because, for those who don't know, and Erica, please interrupt the moment I go off the rails in the wrong direction, because Erica usually speaks on this, but we, as one of the APUS club or organizations, right, student led, they introduced an opportunity a couple years back to have a legacy project. And that can really be anything that you want related to obviously the mission of your club or organization. And so what we essentially did was hearing that Jen and team do all of this stuff out of pocket, essentially. We were like, how can we help support this amazing mission? And so we created this legacy project. It probably even has a cool name of which I am not able to recall right now. Um, and where we essentially do all we can to get all of our points each year as a club so that we can give at least $500 as a gift donation to this team, even if it only covers, I don't know, one plane ticket or
That's
one piece
okay.
of
Yep.
equipment or whatever. We want to do what we can to not only keep the interest alive, but also show our support in every way we can, to include financially. Um, if you don't really understand how the clubs work or how we get money, we can talk about that separately. But we want to do what we can to make enough money to keep this legacy project going, no matter what, simply because of what you just heard, like what they do. It's a very noble thing. And eventually, Erica and I aren't going to be around to run this club. And we're going to have
No.
to pull folks from the membership to step up because we want to keep doing that. So I just wanted to, if you want, uh, to hear from you as the recipient of this, kind of cool legacy thing that we started, and how we try to help you get the cold case interest buzzing around the school too, right? However we can help. If you want to share a little bit about that,
Yeah.
that'd be awesome.
Yeah. It's been really humbling, I guess, and just super nice that you guys chose our nonprofit to make that donation to every year. We are completely funded out of pocket. AMU does not provide us any kind of money or reimbursement. They do produce the Break the Case podcast, which I haven't mentioned yet. It's an investigative style podcast. Each season is a different, works on a different homicide case. So they do provide us a sound engineer and some recording equipment to make that happen. But the rest of us, like when we travel, the current case right now is Linda Malcolm. I put a link in the chat right now to a couple things. She was killed in Washington State. So when we travel there, it's all out of pocket. But we're happy to do it. And we don't have to travel a lot, which is nice. Maybe once, twice a year, we'll take a trip in connection with a case. So it's not horribly expensive, but we are out of pocket for all of our travel and meal expenses and stuff like that. But again, we're happy to do it. But yeah, the Legacy Project has helped us primarily pay for subscriptions. So like we do have a paid Zoom subscription because I don't want to get on a Zoom with a victim's family and then at 40 minutes it's like, okay, you're done. I think that's really rude. So we pay for a paid subscription for that so that we don't have a time constraint. There's a couple of genealogy sites because I'm trained in investigative genetic genealogy. So there's a couple of subscription ancestry sites that we pay subscriptions for. And then of course, you have like the website domain fee and the web hosting fee and the specific email, which I'll put in the chat too, but like info@breakthecase.org. It costs like $9 a month and it's minimal, but anyways, the legacy project and that funding really helps take a chunk out of those costs for the subscriptions and the emails and stuff like that. We also do, out of our own pockets, we've compiled a decent reward fund. It's hovering around 10,000 right now, although 2,500 is earmarked for one case. The rest is earmarked for Linda's case. And we know that it's probably rare that we're ever going to have to pay out a reward, but it is a psychological tool that we use. But that's money that our team compiled out of our own pockets, and we put it into a CD. So it grows a little bit every year, you know. But we always bring $5,000 to start with to every single case that we take on. And we put that 5,000 into a reward fund for that victim. So that just gives you a little background on some of the things that we pay for out of our own pockets and why the Legacy Project has been really, really helpful from that regard. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you for
Yeah.
thank you for
Sorry, I
saying
got
that.
long-winded.
No, I just
But
remember when you said you put it in the reward fund and I had hands on hips. Ma'am, that is to help you. I
I
would
know.
need you.
I got scolded the first year.
That is not for that.
Yeah, it's okay.
But
It's okay.
Erica gave me the name, and it is officially the AMU APU Cold Case Investigative Grant. Thank you, Miss
Oh yeah.
Erica.
Gotcha. Yep.
And she
Yeah.
claims we'll be doing this till we're 90. Don't lie to y'all. So I guess she's obligating me till I turn 90.
And
Go ahead.
Curtis, shoot me an email. Please shoot me an email. In fact, let me put that in the thing here.
So while you're typing your
breakthecase.org.
email, I wanted to ask the members who were here, please don't be shy about asking questions for sure. Please share about this course. If you're
Yes.
still a student, please share in your classes about this course because I know if I had the privilege of majoring in criminal justice, I would want to know that this class was available. If I had money, I would go back and major in this just to take the classes. Um,
Oh, thank
but
you.
well, because the stuff is so
It,
interesting to me, right?
yeah.
And it is to a lot of people. But more than that, again, the underlying honor honorability, that's not a word.
It
We'll
might
just go
be.
with
I don't
hon-
know.
honorableness. No, I'm kidding. Honor is already a noun. The honor, the honor of being able to do even a tiny little part to try to
Yeah.
help solve a case again, to bring whatever remaining family any sense
Yeah.
of closure. Or I also think just them knowing that someone cares and
Cares.
someone is still trying. I think there is
Yeah.
really no value you can put on that,
Yeah.
monetary anyways. So yeah, thanks for all you do.
Yeah, we can, and I appreciate that. Thank you. We can never promise a family that we're going to get an arrest and conviction, but what we do tell them is like, we will put every resource possible towards your person's case, and we will get you every answer we possibly can. And there's no time frame on it. Like Linda's case, we've been on it 3.5 years. That's by far the longest we've spent on a case, but the police are dragging their feet and there's all these other reasons. And that's, again, another conversation for another time. But we don't give up when the going gets difficult. We just keep plugging along. And I'm just not ready. You know, we're never going to leave her case anyways, but we're not quite ready to take on a new case because I think there's a few more things we can do on hers. But I did drop a link for case submissions in the chat. Our team is always taking case submissions. I have a spreadsheet, of every single case that gets submitted to us, and I keep track of all of that. So hopefully later this year, we will be ready to take on a new case. I would love to have some of you be a part of that if you're interested. But if you do have cases that you think need a whole new, fresh set of eyes and a new nose dive into, let us know. We don't do high profile cases. So if you want to submit John Benet Ramsey, which we've gotten like 100 times, or stuff like that, we don't do those. We work on the case that has had no coverage, that is often with a small agency that doesn't have all the resources, but where we can bring resources to the table for them for free and stuff like that. So if you know of one, feel free to use that link to submit it to us. And then I think our nonprofit website link is in there. You can see some of the work that we've done through that website. You can email us there. What else am I missing?
You're doing great. I did want to
Okay.
verbally note the time. So what I'm
Yes.
gonna do right
Yes.
now is stop the spotlight and give folks another probably 30 seconds. If you want to come off mute and ask a question, give a comment, thank Jen, George, and them for what they do. Say, hey, what's up? If you want to do that, now would be the time. Oh, I see a hand up. Go ahead, Caitlin. Caitlin.
No, you got it right the first time, Caitlin. I
Hi.
just wanted to say, what is the best advice you would give? Because right now, I have a bachelor's in psychology and a master's in psychology, but with a
Wow.
concentration in forensics. So it doesn't get me the clinical, but it's okay because I really do want to work the investigative side anyway. So
Yep.
what would be the best advice for getting that? Maybe not um law enforcement specific, but like that civilian criminal investigator position.
So I'm learning that a lot of agencies are adding these civilian jobs. I think mine was kind of one of the first in the country, but it is a thing that's catching on because compared to a badge deputy, we're cheap. I hate to say that, but we don't have to go through a 6 month academy. And I'm part-time, I'm 3/5 time. So I work about 25 hours a week, but some weeks that goes way beyond. It just depends what we have going on. But I'm also a veteran, so I have the VA healthcare. So they don't have to provide me healthcare. So that's why I say like we're kind of cheap, but it's an amazing position. And I'm learning that more agencies are taking those on and adding those type of positions. So you might do a search for that. Civilian criminal investigator, that's my title. So I would Google that. Also, I always recommend to students like look for internships. I know a lot of them suck because they don't pay, but it might be a foot in the door to what you actually want to do. And sometimes just getting your foot in the door and getting to know the command staff or chain of command is all you need. And then, you're on board. So those are the top two things I can think of right now. I don't know if that helps or not. Okay. But kudos for you, though. You have some amazing degrees, so that's cool. I love it.
First off, Jen, everything out of your mouth is helpful, so you don't have to double back and check.
Okay,
Um, I wanted to say publicly, thank you yet again, not only for everything that you and your
always.
team do. Um, I think there should be a little side thank you for your hubby because I know the family of folks who work their passions oftentimes are also
Yeah,
giving. So if you want to let your hubby know, thanks
yeah.
also. But again, thank you for your time for doing this presentation for us.
Anytime.
We love feeling like your special club.
No, in case you guys haven't noticed, I love talking about cases and investigations. So I'm happy to do this anytime. I mean, I could probably talk till midnight if people wanted to talk about specific cases and stuff. So, but I'm not going to do that. But I'm
So
happy to come, speak with you guys anytime you want. So just let me know.
if you wouldn't mind, again, I try to think of accessibility. If you wouldn't mind just verbally sharing your website and the email, and then I'm going to stop the recording so we can grab the photo.
Okay. So the nonprofit website that we created that's kind of conjoined with it is conjoined with the volunteer cold case team is breakthecase.org. And then the best email to get a hold of me at is info@breakthecase.org. Probably, I think, yeah, pretty simple. So
There
I
we
will
go.
say caveat, there is another woman named Jennifer who decided she liked my podcast name and stole it. So there's two
Yeah.
Break the Cases currently. I have now trademarked mine.